Imagine walking into your local bank on a regular day, expecting nothing more than to deposit a check and go about your business. But what if, right before your eyes, the person behind the counter took that check, tore it up, and threw it away? Sounds unbelievable, right? Well, this actually happened to Raymond Holt, a 78-year-old Marine veteran. A man who served his country and, after years of sacrifice, was simply trying to cash a disability compensation check he had earned. Raymond's day started like any other. He walked into the Cedar River Credit Union with his check in hand, ready to take care of some routine banking. But what should have been a simple transaction quickly turned into something no one could have expected. The teller, instead of processing the check, looked at it suspiciously and then shredded it right in front of him. Not only that, but she also insulted him, calling him unemployed and treating him like he was some kind of fraud or troublemaker. The scene left everyone in the bank stunned. Other customers stopped what they were doing to watch this shocking display. Some looked horrified. Some whispered to each other, unsure if what they just saw was real. Raymond, a proud man with decades of military service behind him, stood there silently, feeling humiliated and powerless. This wasn't just about a check anymore. It was about respect. About dignity. About how a veteran, someone who had given so much, was being treated like a nobody. News of the incident didn't take long to spread. People were angry, and rightfully so. A simple mistake. No, this was something deeper. It was a symbol of a larger problem: how some institutions treat those who have served. The public outrage grew fast, with many calling out the bank for its careless and disrespectful behavior. But the response went beyond just angry voices in the community. The story reached the ears of top officials. The Treasury Secretary herself got involved within minutes. It wasn't every day that such a dramatic and disrespectful act against a veteran caught national attention so quickly. She knew this was a serious matter. The actions of one bank teller had set off a chain reaction that couldn't be ignored. This wasn't just about one shredded check anymore. It was about holding institutions accountable when they fail to respect the people they serve. Suddenly, what started as a quiet banking transaction turned into a crisis for the bank. The Treasury Secretary made a bold decision, one that surprised many but showed just how seriously she took the incident. The bank's branch was shut down, not because of a financial failure, but because of a failure in respect and responsibility. This rare move sent a strong message to banks and businesses everywhere: mistreating customers, especially veterans, won't be tolerated. As the news spread, more and more people began to understand the weight of what had happened. It was about more than just a check or a single moment in a bank. It was a moment that highlighted the struggles veterans still face, even years after their service has ended. It was a reminder that respect should never be taken for granted, and that sometimes, standing up for what's right requires swift and serious action. On that day at the Cedar River Credit Union, everything seemed normal at first. Raymond Holt, a Marine veteran in his late 70s, approached the teller window with a check in his hand. This wasn't just any check, it was a disability compensation payment he had earned through years of service to his country. For him, this check wasn't just money, it was a symbol of the sacrifices he had made and the support he rightfully deserved. As Raymond handed over the check, the teller's expression quickly changed. Instead of processing the check like any other transaction, she stared at it with suspicion. Without asking any questions or verifying the details, she reached for the shredder and tore the check into pieces. The sound of the paper ripping echoed in the quiet bank, catching the attention of everyone nearby. Customers around them stopped what they were doing. Some gasped quietly. Others exchanged confused glances. But what shocked people the most was not just the shredding itself, it was what the teller said next. In a tone dripping with disdain, she called Raymond unemployed, implying he was a fraud or trying to scam the bank. The words were harsh, cruel even, and they cut deeper than the shredded paper. Raymond, a man who had faced far greater challenges during his military service, was stunned. He didn't argue or shout back. Instead, he stood there quietly, his face a mix of disbelief and hurt. The humiliation of being treated this way, in public, was overwhelming. The respect he had earned over decades seemed to vanish in an instant. The teller's actions weren't just a rude mistake, they reflected a serious failure of judgment and empathy. This was someone entrusted with helping customers, but instead, she had humiliated one of the very people who had given so much to their country. The incident sparked a wave of questions. How could this happen? Was the teller trained properly? Were there systems in place to prevent such disrespect? And most importantly, what would happen next? Meanwhile, other customers began pulling out their phones, some recording the event. The bank's manager was called over, but the damage was already done. The story quickly spread beyond the walls of the bank. Social media exploded with outrage, with people sharing videos and posts condemning the teller's behavior. Veterans groups, community leaders, and everyday citizens all voiced their anger and disappointment. The incident caught the attention of local news outlets, which soon picked up the story. Headlines questioned the treatment of veterans and raised concerns about how institutions handle situations like this. As the story gained momentum, it reached the highest levels of government. The Treasury Secretary, responsible for overseeing the country's financial institutions, was informed immediately. She recognized that this wasn't just about one shredded check or one bad employee. It was a serious breach of trust and respect that demanded swift action. The bank, which had once been seen as a safe place for customers, suddenly found itself under intense scrutiny. The teller's mistake had exposed deeper problems within the institution, forcing officials to take a hard look at their policies and training. What followed was a dramatic response that shocked many, showing how far the government was willing to go to protect veterans and uphold standards in financial services. This moment at the Cedar River Credit Union became a turning point, a clear message that respect and accountability could not be compromised. The moment the news about the shredded veterans' check reached the Treasury Secretary, the situation escalated rapidly. This wasn't just a local incident anymore, it had become a national issue. The Secretary understood the gravity of what had happened. A veteran, someone who had served the country, was disrespected in a place that should have been safe and reliable. The swift decision to shut down the bank branch was both surprising and unprecedented, but it sent a powerful message. Officials wasted no time. Within minutes of the report, the Treasury Department launched a full investigation into the bank's practices. They wanted to know how such a blatant act of disrespect could happen under their watch. How could a teller simply shred a government-issued check meant for a disabled veteran without proper verification or consequence? The questions were pressing, and answers were needed fast. The bank, Cedar River Credit Union, suddenly found itself at the center of a storm. Customers began canceling their accounts in protest. Employees were questioned about their training and attitudes toward veterans and other customers. The institution's reputation was on the line. Internal reviews uncovered a culture of negligence and lack of accountability, which only made the situation worse. The Treasury Secretary's decision to close the branch was more than just a punishment, it was a statement that financial institutions must prioritize respect and responsibility. This wasn't about finances or paperwork, it was about human dignity. The shutdown was a wake-up call to banks everywhere. Mistreating customers, especially veterans, would no longer be overlooked or swept under the rug. News of the shutdown spread like wildfire. It dominated headlines, sparked debates on social media, and led to calls for stricter regulations on banks and credit unions. Veterans groups saw this as a victory, but also as a reminder of the ongoing challenges their members face. Many veterans shared their own stories of disrespect and frustration in dealing with institutions meant to serve them. Meanwhile, the Treasury Department began working on new guidelines to prevent incidents like this from happening again. They focused on improving employee training, increasing oversight, and setting clearer policies for how banks handle veteran benefits and government-issued payments. These changes aimed to ensure that no veteran would have to experience the humiliation Raymond Holt faced. The incident also sparked conversations about how society views and treats veterans. For many, it was shocking to realize that even decades after serving, veterans could still be marginalized or ignored in everyday life. The story of the shredded check became a symbol of the broader struggle for recognition and respect. Community leaders stepped forward to support veterans and advocate for better protections. Lawmakers introduced bills to hold financial institutions more accountable and provide stronger safeguards for veteran benefits. The public, moved by Raymond's story, demanded change not just in banks but in how veterans are valued across all areas of life. Through it all, Raymond remained quietly dignified. Though he was at the center of this national controversy, he didn't seek attention or sympathy. Instead, his experience highlighted the importance of standing up against injustice, no matter how small or big it may seem. The Treasury Secretary's bold move showed that sometimes, a single act can ripple outward, forcing an entire system to confront its flaws and strive for better. The bank's shutdown wasn't the end, it was just the beginning of a larger conversation about respect, accountability, and the true meaning of service. The news of the bank's closure sparked a wave of reactions from the community, especially among veterans and their families. People were furious, not just because a check was shredded, but because it represented a deeper issue, the disrespect and neglect many veterans face every day. Conversations erupted in living rooms, social media feeds, and local town halls about how society treats those who have sacrificed so much. Veterans groups quickly organized, rallying behind Raymond Holt's story. They saw his experience as more than just a personal slight, it was a sign of a systemic problem. These organizations began pushing for better protections and training to ensure that veterans are treated with the dignity they deserve in every institution, especially banks and government offices. Their voices were loud and clear. This could not happen again. Many veterans shared their own stories of frustration, neglect, and sometimes outright disrespect. Some talked about long waits to receive benefits, confusing paperwork, or being dismissed when seeking help. These personal accounts struck a chord with the public, shining a light on struggles that often go unnoticed. It became clear that Raymond's incident was just the tip of the iceberg. The media played a crucial role in keeping the spotlight on the issue. News outlets covered the bank's shutdown extensively, interviewing veterans, experts, and officials. They explored questions about accountability, respect, and the responsibilities of financial institutions. The coverage helped turn a local incident into a national conversation, reminding people across the country about the challenges veterans face beyond the battlefield. Local leaders also stepped forward, expressing outrage and promising to take action. Some called for policy changes at the municipal level, focusing on improving services for veterans and ensuring that public institutions treat them fairly. Town meetings were filled with passionate discussions about how to better support those who had served. The community came together, united in demanding respect and better treatment. Social media became a powerful platform for advocacy. Hashtags supporting veterans trended for days, and posts sharing Raymond's story were shared widely. People used their voices to call out similar incidents they had witnessed or experienced. This online momentum put pressure on banks and other institutions to review their practices and policies. The outcry also reached lawmakers. Several politicians spoke out, condemning the bank's actions and vowing to introduce legislation that would protect veterans from such mistreatment in the future. Proposals included stricter oversight of financial institutions, mandatory training on veterans' benefits, and harsher penalties for employees who mistreat customers. Veterans advocates saw these efforts as critical steps forward. They knew that changing policies was only part of the solution, shifting public attitudes was equally important. Respecting veterans means acknowledging their sacrifices, understanding their needs, and ensuring they receive fair treatment in all aspects of life. Throughout all this, Raymond remained a quiet symbol of resilience. His experience brought attention to a cause that many had overlooked for too long. The community's response showed that when people come together, they can create change and that no one who has served should ever be treated with anything less than the utmost respect. The incident with Raymond Holt didn't just stir immediate outrage, it sparked a broader conversation about the responsibilities financial institutions have toward their customers, especially veterans. Banks and credit unions are more than just places to store money, they are pillars in the community that hold a responsibility to treat everyone fairly and with respect. What happened at Cedar River Credit Union made it clear that sometimes, these institutions fall short and the consequences can be serious. Financial experts began analyzing how a simple employee mistake could snowball into a national scandal. They pointed out that institutions must invest in better training programs that focus not only on procedures but also on empathy and understanding. The teller who shredded the veteran's check acted without verification or compassion. This kind of behavior signals a deeper issue, a lack of awareness and sensitivity towards vulnerable customers, including veterans. Discussions spread about the importance of creating a culture within banks that prioritizes respect and accountability. Leadership plays a huge role in setting this tone. If managers and executives don't emphasize customer care, it's unlikely frontline employees will understand the importance of their role beyond just processing transactions. This incident became a case study in what happens when that culture is missing. Veterans' rights advocates also used this moment to highlight how systemic changes are needed beyond just the banking sector. Many veterans face bureaucratic hurdles and misunderstanding when accessing benefits, healthcare, and support services. Raymond's experience was a painful example of what can happen when those systems fail to respect the people they are meant to serve. The Treasury Secretary's decision to shut down the branch sent ripples through the financial world. It showed that government regulators are willing to take bold steps to protect citizens and hold businesses accountable. This has made many banks reevaluate their policies and how they train their employees. Suddenly, respecting veterans and ensuring proper handling of their benefits became a priority issue. New policies started to emerge, focusing on improving transparency and communication. Banks began to introduce more rigorous checks before rejecting or dismissing government-issued checks. Training modules were updated to include education about veterans' benefits and the importance of treating every customer with dignity. These changes aimed to prevent another situation like Raymond's from happening again. Beyond policy, the story sparked a deeper reflection on how society values veterans. The incident forced people to confront uncomfortable questions. Are we doing enough to honor those who have served? Do we truly understand the sacrifices veterans have made and the challenges they face when reintegrating into civilian life? The public dialogue shifted from simple outrage to a desire for meaningful change. Community organizations and lawmakers joined forces to support this new push for reform. They saw the power of one person's story to illuminate a widespread issue. The movement extended beyond banking, touching on healthcare, employment, and public services for veterans. Raymond's experience became a symbol of why these changes are urgent and necessary. The impact of this single act, the shredding of a veteran's check, reminded everyone that respect is not optional. It's fundamental. Institutions must not only follow rules but also honor the people those rules are designed to protect. And for veterans, who have given so much, this respect should be guaranteed, not earned. Raymond Holt's experience didn't just stop with the bank's closure and new policies, it ignited a much larger conversation about the way veterans are treated every day across the country. People started to ask themselves, what does it truly mean to respect those who have served? It became clear that respect isn't just about words or ceremonies, it's about how veterans are treated in real-life situations, at banks, hospitals, workplaces, and even in everyday interactions. The story resonated deeply because it showed how easily dignity can be stripped away when people fail to recognize the sacrifices veterans have made. Raymond, a quiet man who had served his country with honor, suddenly found himself at the center of a national spotlight. But he wasn't looking for fame or sympathy, he wanted something far simpler: to be treated fairly and with kindness. This incident encouraged communities around the nation to reflect on their own treatment of veterans. Many realized that stories like Raymond's were not unique. Too often, veterans face obstacles and disrespect in places where they should feel safe and valued. Whether it's long waits at the VA, challenges in finding jobs, or misunderstandings about their benefits, the struggles run deep and affect millions. Public awareness grew as more people learned about these challenges. Advocacy groups used Raymond's story to push for broader reforms. They stressed the need for better education not only for financial institutions but also for employers, healthcare providers, and government agencies. Everyone who interacts with veterans should understand their experiences and the support they deserve. As these conversations spread, changes began happening beyond banks. Employers started to offer more veteran-friendly hiring practices. Healthcare systems improved outreach and care tailored to veterans' unique needs. Government agencies reviewed how they communicate benefits and services to avoid confusion and frustration. The ripple effect of Raymond's experience even reached schools and community programs. Many introduced initiatives to teach younger generations about veterans' contributions and the importance of respect. This shift in mindset aimed to build a future where veterans are honored not just with ceremonies but with daily actions of appreciation and support. At the heart of it all, Raymond's quiet strength became a powerful symbol. His willingness to endure humiliation without anger inspired many to speak up against injustice and demand change. His story reminded people that standing up for respect and dignity matters, no matter how small the moment may seem. Meanwhile, institutions that once neglected their duty began to realize that respecting veterans isn't optional, it's essential. The Treasury Secretary's bold move to shut down a bank branch over mistreatment showed that accountability matters. It sent a clear message that veterans' rights must be protected and that no one should be treated as less than they are. Even months after the incident, the conversation continues. Raymond's story lives on as a reminder that respect, empathy, and fairness are the foundation of any society that values its citizens. It challenges everyone to think about how they treat veterans in their daily lives and what they can do to ensure those who served are never forgotten or dismissed again. The moment a check was shredded became so much more than an isolated act. It sparked a movement toward real change, a call for respect that echoes far beyond the walls of one bank and touches the lives of countless veterans everywhere.